From Hancock-Whitney Stadium here in Mobile, Alabama, day number 1 of the Reese's Senior Bowl is in the books. Tommy Yarsh of DallasCowboys.com. I'm Kyle Yeomans, wrapping up the first day that was. And they have the motto of the draft starts in Mobile. They've gone behind that for years to come, and it certainly feels that way because today got a chance to talk to some of the prospects, started our day early at the Mobile Convention Center before walking out here and seeing both the national practice in the morning and then working into the American practice in the afternoon. Let's start with the national practice. Tommy, as we wrap up the day, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I thought a couple guys stood out to me. Ariante Ursare, the tackle from Minnesota. He's a guy that we've covered a little bit on the draft show here in the early goings. I thought he looked really strong. That's what his thing is, the strength, like being able to push guys in front of him and keep guys out of the backfield. I thought he did a really good job of that. I know there's still some concerns about his feet and his footwork, so we'll keep a closer eye on that tomorrow, but I thought he looked very strong today. Jeffrey Bassa, the linebacker from Oregon, incredible closing speed for a linebacker. You and I were talking while he was playing, and it looked at points like he was playing corner from the linebacker spot. So that's another guy who really stood out to me. And then up front of the defensive line, Anais Peebles, Virginia Tech, just wrecking shop in the run game. This guy's known more as a pass rushing, 3-technique kind of defensive lineman, but the first 2 reps that we saw of him, he just throws guys off him left and right to get into the backfield and blow up the run play when we saw the 11-on-11 period towards the end of practice. So those 3 for me definitely stood out. And then one guy, additionally, an honorable mention, if you will, a guy that we talked to and you'll see on the draft show, Mike Green from Marshall, the edge rusher. Up and down day, I think, but he had some really good reps, and he looks the part, Kyle.
I wrote on my notebook that his twitch is better in person, and he had plenty of that on tape during his time in the Sun Belt, winning a Sun Belt Conference title with the Marshall Thundering Herd. Comes out here against better competition. We asked him about that today. What is the benefit of doing an event like this? He said, I get to put tape on film against the best of the best. That's really the general theme amongst some of these guys. Mike Green was certainly one of those. Another one that we were excited out of the hills of West Virginia, Wyatt Milam from the Mountaineers of West Virginia up in Morgantown, had a great season playing multiple positions on the offensive line. Today he was fantastic in one-on-one drills, kept his hands steady, kept the punch heavy, the light feet along the way, as you like to see from those big offensive linemen. He was in control almost all the way throughout his reps. 2 of the draft show pet cats, Mike Green, Wyatt Milam, out of the hills of West Virginia, almost heaven, having that same sort of success down here in Alabama. One more guy I want to bring up out of that first practice was another guy we talked to on the draft show, Ollie Gordon, running back from Oklahoma State. It's tough to evaluate running backs at this point in time because there's no hitting, there's no real thud up, there's just a couple of touches and then you're off to the races. Speed-wise, looks great. Really the entirety of his body of work, including his size. He measured in grade 230 pounds, and he's really dwarfing all the other guys around him at the running back position. Was impressed with the way he moved with the size as a comparison. And then one more guy to look at, too. Iowa State had a couple of wide receivers out here. Jalen Milroe was fantastic, though. Higgins was a guy coming in that I thought was going to steal the show from the Cyclones. No, it was Jalen Milroe. He had a great catch on the sideline, twisting back to the inside of the 5-yard line, made a grab with both feet in bounds. Of course, we're trying to make plays on Sundays, so he got both feet down. Moving into the American practice in the afternoon, we had an opportunity to catch up with Will McClay midway through practice. We'll post that on DallasCowboys.com as well. But what did you see once you got a chance to get through the Will McClay stories and then see what happened on the field?
Yeah, a couple of edge rushers really stood out to me in there from the Lone Star Showdown rivalry from Texas and Texas A&M. We'll start with Texas A&M edge Shamar Stewart. He had the rep of the day. He got oohs and ahs from everybody in this crowd, myself and Kyle included, on a bull rush against, I think it was a Kansas tackle.
Yeah,
I'm blanking on the name right now, but just straight back, lifts him off the ground with that, I think it was his left arm, and just pile drives him into the quarterback. Just a fantastic rep, and he's the guy that we talked about coming in here as someone to keep an eye on. These Texas A&M edge rushers, Nick Scoward and then Shamar Turner in the middle of that defensive line. So the Aggies with some really good defenders. I know Turner and Scoward aren't participating, but their counterpart, Shamar Stewart, was fantastic today. And on the other side, Barron Sorrell, another edge rusher who I wasn't as sure about, even after watching him for 3 years at Texas coming in. I thought he was a little bit undersized, but he measured in really well, and he played very well against these opposing offensive tackles. I thought he was a little bit better of a run blocker and a run defender during his time at Texas, but today he got after the passer a little bit well, too, in these one-on-one drills. So Barron Sorrell, Shamar Stewart from Texas and Texas A&M, respectively.
Both guys guys were fantastic. I also want to go to the interior, to the defensive line. How about the South Carolina defensive tackle, TJ Sanders? Big body inside. He weighed in very well during those initial measurements from the Senior Bowl yesterday. He comes out here, and he's a one-man wrecking crew in team drills. I didn't think he carried it over to the one-on-ones the way that I really wanted him to, but he showed power, he showed some twitch, he showed some strength and length to take up multiple gaps and had that gap discipline during the team drills. So a couple of guys to keep an eye on moving forward. Couple names we didn't mention but got a chance to catch up with, starting with the national team. Tight end Elijah Arroyo is a Frisco Independence product, and he's, of course, out of the University of Miami. He had a great day. Here's what he had to say following practice.
It was good. It was good to come out here and compete with the guys. We have, a lot of elite talent out here, so it was just fun to, compete against the best of the best.
You certainly did so, and you showed off the receiving ability and the blocking ability. Which one are you more confident in taking that step to the next level?
Really both. I feel like, today I probably had a better day in the past game. I have, things to work on in both, though. So, I'm going to continue to do that.
What about your time at Frisco Independence High School and in Texas high school football, Coach Kyle Story and company, that's helped you prepare for this moment?
Hey, shout out my guy, Coach Story. Shout out Coach Lav. Shout out, everybody at Independence. But, it was a great time out there. Texas football, there's nothing like it. So it was a great time to be able to, play against, the best state of high school football, But, yeah, it was good.
You've had a great career at Miami as a receiving threat and then also just as a blocking threat. What do you feel like you're going to bring to the next level for whatever team decides to draft you?
Really, I'm a tight end, but I'm also an extra receiver out there, So you put me out there in 12 personnel, I can run block, I can, be dominant in the run game, and, you can split me out wide, and you got to account for me as another receiver.
Definitely so. We saw that today in the way that you played in the practices. Now, final one, what would it mean for you to end up being drafted by the Cowboys and get to go back home?
It would be great, First of all, it'd be a blessing to get drafted anywhere, but, going back to the home team, that would be something special.
Great catching up with Elijah Arroyo. I actually called his high school football games with the Frisco ISD Sports Network when he was at Independence, and getting to catch up with him after having so much success at the collegiate level and showing out today. There were times where I had to remember that he was a tight end, not a receiver, because he was probably the most impressive pass catcher on the field in that first practice session. He was great as a blocker, showed some headiness on angles to take to a certain block and run game, and then was able to follow through a lot of the time, getting to that second level and continuing to finish forward. Then just burning these nickel corners or linebackers or whoever they were on. They actually at one point in practice made a switch to put a cornerback on Arroyo because he was having so much success along the way. So he was fantastic during his high school years, had great tape at Miami. I think he made himself a little bit of draft stock rise today at the Senior Bowl, doing it again in front of all of the scouts in attendance.
Yeah, I know he was a guy that you and I were talking about as we came in, and you pointed him out to me as soon as we got to the stadium here today. It's like, hey, watch for Arroyo, and I'm glad that I did, because as you mentioned, just physically when you were talking to him, his stature's good. He's built really well, measured in very well as well, and like you mentioned, one of the better receiving tight ends that's in this group today. You look at a guy like Ferguson from Oregon too, who might be somebody else. Gunnar Helm from Texas not participating, but you concentrate maybe on those guys a little bit more at the top of the class. But Elijah Arroyo, maybe a name that you haven't heard as much, but certainly worth the watch.
And they were really active in the tight end room in that second practice as well. I know one of the guys you talked to was somebody that was throwing to those tight ends along the way.
Yeah, you mentioned calling a game of Arroyo's in high school. I covered several games of Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe on his time at Katy Tompkins. Will McClay was telling us while we were up there talking to him that, they feel like they've got an advantage with these Texas kids, especially the Dallas area. Now, Jalen Milroe, not from the Dallas area, but nonetheless the state of Texas, because, they've grown up in the area and they're able to see him in high school and college in their time there before they go to the next level. And Jalen Milroe, just a athletic specimen at the quarterback position, the best athlete, I think, in this quarterback class. I got a chance to catch up with Jalen here.
No, it was great to get back on the field. It's so fun being back on the field, learning each and every day with the guys. We all coming from different areas. We're just learning each other, and it's been so fun just to be able to be a part of this process with so many great talent around the country at every position. So it's been fun. I've been enjoying the process, been enjoying it with the coaches as well, because there's so much knowledge on the field. So as a player, I'm just trying to soak it all in.
Your athletic ability and what you're able to do with your legs makes you one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in this class. When you present yourself to NFL general managers, what are you telling them in terms of what you can do to change an offense?
Number one, it starts with being disciplined. When I talk about being disciplined, it's all about tying into what is correlated to the game plan. Whatever is asked of me, I'm going to do that. Whether if it's the run game, the passing game, it's all about correlating. What you do during the week, and so it's all about building upon what we talk about, and also just doing whatever it is to be the best leader I can be. So it's just two variations of that process, and just trying to be the best version of myself when it comes to being a part of an organization.
You've been developed by now Nick Saban and now Kalen DeBoer this last year. Where do you feel like you've grown the most from both of those guys, and what's something you've learned that's really stuck with you throughout this process?
Two things: knowledge, and secondly, experience. Being a first-year starter, then a second-year starter, you learn so much at the quarterback position, and it's all about being comfortable, also building the knowledge base as well. So having a great coach and Coach Saban, and then Coach DeBoer, the knowledge base has tremendously grown, and just it's been great to be able to be the starting quarterback at Alabama, and also have great coaches as well. So the process has been great throughout my journey of being in college, and so I'm just looking forward to what's ahead.
I mean, he's still incredible. Yeah. Still just a down-to-earth guy, and what he did at Alabama was impressive. Of course, they kind of had a down year by the Alabama standards across the way, did not make the college football playoff, but that doesn't necessarily hurt what he did as a leader in that building, and it's something he prides himself on.
Yeah, he's a guy who his teammates respect, and it's been that way since his time at Tompkins High School, and so his coaching staff likes him, and the character element of this is something that's so important. Will McClay was even telling us that that's something that they're taking a little bit more seriously in this draft process, is digging deeper into these players as people, seeing what their football character is like, so making sure that they can fit in a locker room that Brian Schottenheimer has made very clear in his introductory press conference is going to be based on culture. Jalen Milroe fits that bill. Now, whether or not he'll be a Dallas Cowboy, I don't know. I don't think so. But whichever NFL franchise drafts him is going to get a guy who's going to be a good locker room fit, and he just so happens to be an incredible quarterback as well. When you look at what he's able to do with his legs, and you look at the NFL nowadays, guys like Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, the ability to extend plays completely changes what you can do on the offensive side of the ball, because it all starts with your quarterback. And when you have that dual threat ability, you can do so many more things with your offense and build the weapons around him. Jalen Milroe, I think, will need a little bit of time to cook into an NFL offense. I think there are still some things that he needs to get ready, but he showed you in his college career that when he's playing his best and he's on point throwing the ball, he's on point running the ball, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
And of course, he played just a couple hours north of where we are here in Mobile, Alabama. It is only day one. We are just getting started here from the Senior Bowl. Follow Tommy_Yarish on Twitter, myself at Kyle_Yeomans, and everything on DallasCowboys.com. He's had a couple articles out. We'll have a draft notebook out on the draft blog, and then I'll have the top 8 performers of day one here in Mobile, Alabama, including a lot of the names we just talked about very shortly here on DallasCowboys.com. Tune in tomorrow, the draft show, and plenty more along the way, bringing all the coverage here from the Reese's Senior Bowl at Hancock Whitney Stadium in Mobile, Alabama.